What if Alexis was the protagonist instead of Jaden? Alexis Rhodes, a confident, tough duelist with kind of an attitude.
Does she really think her outfit looks good? Or did she get dressed in the dark?
Alexis, focus!
Alexis has definitely proven to be one of the top duelists in Duelist Academy, with her signature cards being the Cyber Angels. The only thing missing from her impressive skill set is a lack of a catchphrase.
Great Scott! Oh man! Sam Hill!
Why don't I have a catchphrase?
Our story starts when a bunch of newbies enter Duelist Academy, including Tyranno Hasselberry, and a professional duelist known as Aster Phoenix. Aster Phoenix was sent to Duelist Academy to find the chosen duelist. You see, without Jaden being the protagonist, the chosen duelist was clouded in shadows.
But who could this be? The Strength. This card symbolizes a great power that cannot be swayed. I must discover the source of this power.
So Sartorius sent Aster to Duelist Academy to find them. However, naturally Aster orientated towards Chaz, as he had just seen him beat an Obelisk Blue student.
Spit it out, Reggie. It means one more attack and you lose. Welcome to Duel Academy, freshman.
Get 'em, boys!
So Aster built a deck out of spare cards and challenged Chaz to a duel. However, midway throughout the duel, Aster received a phone call from Sartorius, revealing that Chaz wasn't the chosen one, even though he possessed similar qualities. So Aster, using his second-rate deck, defeated Chaz, completely humiliating him in front of his friends. One of those friends being Alexis Rhodes. Alexis really didn't like how Aster had treated Chaz. Right, Alexis?
Maybe, but he was kinda cute.
Alexis found Chaz a little strange occasionally. However, fundamentally, he was her friend, and only her friend, despite what he told everyone. Alexis didn't like bullies, so she challenged Aster to a duel, telling Aster that if he wanted to duel the best duelist in Duelist Academy, he would have to duel her. However, Aster stared at Alexis and kept walking, and told her that she wasn't worth his time. It was only later she realised that it was Aster Phoenix.
Aster Phoenix is the #1 duelist in the World League. As in, he's a pro.
You're kidding me.
As soon as Aster arrived back to Sartorius, he was asked if he had found the chosen duelist. However, Aster reassured Sartorius that the chosen duelist didn't exist, and if they did, they definitely weren't at Duelist Academy. Now, the following events happened just like the anime. Aster duels Zane. However, mid-duel, Aster explains to him how he defeated Chaz and was disappointed with the caliber of duelist at Duelist Academy. However, Zane smiles and states he never dueled the best duelist at Duelist Academy, since he never dueled a girl called Alexis Rhodes. Aster recognized that name. It was the same girl who had challenged him to a duel previously. Aster defeats Zane.
Correct! And don't you forget it!
Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen! Zane Truesdale has lost!
After the duel was over, Aster challenges Alexis to a duel live on TV.
I'm the best. I can't be beat. And to prove it, I'm challenging this schoolgirl. I won't tell you her name, but it rhymes with Schmalexis Schmodes. Hear me, Schmalexis? I'm coming for you.
Alexis, now a little nervous, realised she was going to face Aster Phoenix, a top-ranking duelist, in a few weeks' time. In preparation, she dueled a few people, one of them being Hasselberry.
Draw your duel disc!
Who, after being defeated, became Alexis's right-hand man and followed her everywhere, even though that really annoyed her.
Dino DNA!
Alexis didn't really know what to do, so she called the only person she normally spoke to when things were tough, Zane. However, Zane never responded. After his loss to Aster, Zane was on a dark journey, and Alexis couldn't get hold of him.
I think it's safe to say his career is officially over!
Are want a refund!
Go back to school, you rookie!
Zane, you should change your name to Lane!
Yeah, Lane Truesdale!
And the time came for the duel between Alexis and Asta. Standing opposite him was really intimidating for her. He radiated confidence. However, Alexis never doubted herself and vowed to keep the promise she had once made to Zane of being the #1 duelist in Duelist Academy. The duel went exactly how you're probably thinking it went. Asta was always 2 or even 3 steps ahead of her. When Asta played Clock Tower Prison, it cemented his victory, as it allowed him to play Destiny Hero Dreadmaster.
And now, come on out! Destiny Hero Dreadmaster!
You see, previous to the duel with Alexis, Sartorius embedded the Dreadmaster with the light of destruction. And when Alexis was wiped out and inevitably lost the duel, she lost a lot more than just a duel, as she became a member of the Society of Light.
Don't you guys see? I'm glad I lost. It opened my eyes to the truth and helped me to see the light. Thank you. I'm ready to enter the Society of Light now.
Now, for those of you who are wondering why Alexis never got chosen by the Neo-Spacians or some other extraterrestrial force, well, when she was a child, she did enter Kyber's competition.
Attention all duelists! My company will be hosting a global competition. Anyone who thinks they've got what it takes can enter. Just create a design for a new card. Then mail your submission to the Kyber Corporation. Winners will be handpicked by me.
However, she simply didn't win.
Huh. A third-rate drawing from a fourth-rate artist.
Meaning no cosmic force was coming to Alexis's aid. Sartorius personally asked to meet Alexis, realizing he had both chosen duelists, Asta and Alexis, under his control, meaning there was no one who could stop him. Sartorius gave Alexis a new deck to strengthen her abilities, as well as a card called White Veil. He told her to use it well, as it was a key card only members of the Society of Light could use. As soon as Chaz found out his precious Alexis was taken by the Society of Light, he immediately jumped to save her, challenging her to a duel.
Dorks, only my love can set her free.
But with his love for Alexis clouding his dueling abilities, he resorted to gimmicky cards in order to snap Alexis out of the Society of Light.
You're sweet. Too bad I have to crush you.
However, with Alexis's new deck full of ice cards, Chaz had no chance. She used the White Veil spell card and brought Chaz's life points down to 0.
Settle down, dorks. That was nothing. Just wait until you see what happens next.
Resulting in Chaz being a member of the Society of Light.
It's more than that. I finally woke up, and I've seen the light. The Society of Light. It holds all the answers.
There was one more person who couldn't allow Alexis to turn to the Society of Light, and that was her right-hand man, Hasselberry.
Dino DNA!
He missed the old Alexis, even though a majority of their time was Alexis scolding him. Hasselberry was next to challenge Alexis to a duel. However, unlike Chaz, Hasselberry knew he had to defeat Alexis in a duel in order to bring her back. The duel went completely different to the one against Chaz. Hasselberry reached out to Alexis about who she was and what she stood for, reminding her how fun it used to be to duel. This seemed like it had no effect on her, but slowly but surely, Alexis started to remember her old memories and began to rebel against Sartorius.
My White Veil spell card. But something's telling me not to play it. What's going on?
Hasselberry had a special power. Since he had Dino DNA, he had access to a dinosaur spirit, which helped him break through to Alexis, as it helped defy the Society of Light's control over her. Alexis's love of dueling helped her break through Sartorius' mind control.
I love dueling more than anything, and I'm gonna practice until I'm the best.
Similar to how Bastion broke through the Society of Light's control with his love of science. Alexis, finally taking control back, used her remaining strength to defeat Hasselberry, and then thanked him for saving her.
Maybe I don't need Sartorius' cards after all. So later, White Veil.
Sartorius sensed Alexis had broken out of his control, which surprised him, as for the first time, his tarot cards were wrong, realizing that Alexis had managed to change destiny by breaking through his mind control. Sartorius had to confirm this firsthand and asked Asta to have a rematch with Alexis, secretly trying to confirm who was the real chosen duelist between Asta and Alexis. Asta was a little frustrated that he had to duel her again, knowing how easily he defeated her in the past, but he trusted Sartorius' judgment and didn't want to let him down. Alexis was more confident now, as she rediscovered her love for dueling and regained her resolve. She now had a deck combined with her ice cards as well as her old Cyber Angel deck, giving her a completely fresh new powerful deck. However, she decided to keep the White Veil out of her deck, as its power still resided in the Light of Destruction. The rematch between Asta and Alexis went quite different from the last one, with Alexis taking the lead. However, soon Asta took control with his new card that she had never seen before, Destiny Hero Dogma. However, Alexis could see Asta was fueled with revenge against the person who had killed his father, so she made him realize that dueling was about having fun, and that Alexis herself had also forgotten what it felt like not too long ago.
My father created the Destiny Heroes to make me happy. What would he think of me now? Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Every time I use my Destiny Heroes, all I feel is pain. What happened to me?
Alexis realized that the only way to show Asta what it meant to be a duelist was to defeat him in a duel, so she summoned Cyber Blader, and with Asta having exactly 2 monsters, was able to double Cyber Blader's attack and defeat Destiny Hero Dogma, winning her the duel. Sartorius sensed Asta's defeat, realizing once and for all that Alexis was the chosen duelist. He also realized from that one duel that Alexis wasn't fully free from the light of the darkness. However, instead of it controlling her, Alexis was controlling it in order to change destiny, which made her incredibly dangerous. Because as Sartorius realized, by trying to control Alexis, he had given her the power to defeat him. So Sartorius decided to take serious countermeasures against her, and went after the one person that had the potential to defeat Alexis before she completely mastered her abilities. A few days later, Alexis was approached by her 2 friends, Jasmine and Mindy. They looked really worried and told her about a mystery duelist who had turned up to Duelist Academy, apparently sent by Sartorius to hunt Alexis down. Alexis and her friends ran to the pier to see who the mystery duelist was, and there he stood at the same place he used to stand with Alexis, Zane Truesdale. But this was no Zane she recognized. He stood there with his cold, dead eyes, waiting to duel Alexis. Zane turned away and walked towards the island. Alexis yelled after him, hoping to get some kind of reaction. However, Zane completely ignored her, and her call was met by deaf ears. As Alexis and her friends walked back to their dorms, she wondered if this was Sartorius' doing. Had he turned Zane like he almost turned her? But it was impossible. Zane's shadowy, dark demeanour, as well as his outfit, didn't match the MO of the Society of Light. This was an entirely new issue which had arrived at Duel Academy. The next morning, Alexis awoke to the news of several duelists which were found unconscious with severe burns around their neck and arms. Even Miss Fontaine couldn't identify the cause. However, it seemed each duelist was found with a duel disc activated, almost like they were in the middle of a duel. Alexis had a horrible feeling at the bottom of her stomach that Zane was connected to these events, as it only started happening as soon as he arrived at the island. An announcement was made by Chancellor Shepard that there was going to be a new curfew for duelists, as it was too dangerous for people to walk alone around campus. This was around the same time Alexis ran into Asta Phoenix. With a calm expression on his face, he seemed almost unbothered by the events that had occurred the last few days. Alexis asked Asta if he knew anything about what was going on, and if Sartorius was behind this. You see, after Alexis had defeated Asta and helped him realize that dueling was also about having fun, there was almost a mutual respect between the 2 duelists. Asta told her that Sartorius had nothing to do with the injured duelists, and that it was in fact Zane Truesdale who was responsible, which confirmed Alexis' nightmare. He also told Alexis that Zane was no longer a regular duelist. he was known as a rare hunter. However, even amongst the other rare hunters, what made Zane so dangerous was that he wasn't looking for any money or rare cards. He just wanted to win, meaning he would do anything to make that happen.
He just wants to win, and he doesn't really care who he has to step on. According to your brother, all he really cares about is victory.
That's right. You people are all the same to me. A bunch of worthless maggots.
Asta went on to explain how Sartorius had asked Zane to duel Alexis. However, Zane played by his own rules and didn't take orders from anyone. Alexis confidently told Asta about their friendship and told him that Zane would never hurt her. However, Asta only smirked and showed Alexis an image of the school infirmary. And there lying on the bed was Zane's last victim, a raw yellow duelist called Cyrus Truesdale, Zane's younger brother. That just confirmed it. The Zane she knew no longer existed, and that Alexis would inevitably be targeted by Zane. A few days went by, and Zane was still nowhere to be found. However, due to the danger, Chancellor Shepard announced that the Gen X tournament would be cancelled. Alexis couldn't find any leads to the location of Zane. However, did receive a mystery note in her locker, which told her to meet on the side of the mountain alone. Alexis was waiting for something like this. She knew it was because of her Zane was called here in the first place, and she felt it was her responsibility to deal with Zane and even bring him back to how she remembered him, because she missed her friend. So when the sun went down, Alexis snuck out of her dorm and headed to the side of the mountain with her duel disc at the ready. But there was no one there. She yelled for Zane to come out. However, a dark silhouette appeared behind her. It was Chaz. Even with Chaz being possessed by Sartorius and the Society of Light, he was still madly in love with Alexis and would stop at nothing to make her join the Society of Light with him, so he and Alexis could rule on the winning side together. In the past few days, Chaz had caused a lot of problems, almost single-handedly defeating most of the Obelisk Blue Dome.
They'll all be dressed in white soon enough, but they won't look as good as me.
As well as painting the school white in Sartorius' name. You see, even though Alexis didn't really have time to deal with Chaz, she acknowledged that it was her fault that Chaz had turned in the first place, and therefore making Chaz also her responsibility, so she reluctantly agreed to a duel. Alexis had made some serious improvements to her deck. If you remember from the last video, she now had a deck comprised with Cyber Angels as well as her Ice cards given to her by Sartorius. A mixed match of both decks giving her one powerful deck. However, what she didn't realise was Chaz had also upgraded his deck with the help of Sartorius. So now, not only did Chaz have an upgraded deck similar to Alexis, he also had been dueling pretty much non-stop for Sartorius in order to gather him an army of followers. So his skills and experience was sharp compared to Alexis, who hadn't really duelled much since her last duel with Asta Phoenix. Before the duel was about to begin, someone familiar screamed her name and ran up to her. Of course, it was Sergeant Tyranno Hasselberry.
Dino DNA!
He had been camped out outside Alexis' dorm ever since they became friends, and seen Alexis leave a dormitory after curfew, and gotten worried. Alexis acted annoyed by his interruption, but was secretly happy to see him. Hasselberry reminded her how she broke out of Sartorius' spell, and that the same could work on Chaz, and Alexis immediately knew what to do, and she whispered some instructions to Hasselberry, which after he heard them, smiled and ran down the hill in military fashion, and returned promptly, handing Alexis 4 cards which she shuffled into her deck. Alexis started the duel as she normally does, using her Cyber Angel cards.
Alright, let's see! H-Wall Cyber, rise!
However, Chaz only laughed and spouted nonsense about the Society of Light.
Here's the deal, losers. Obelisk Blue, Slifer Red, they're all just a big joke. If you want to be where it's at, then come with me and see the light.
Which irritated Alexis more than he normally did. she honestly missed the old Chaz. Chaz countered by summoning the White Knight Swordsman, cards which Alexis had never seen before. Alexis was on the back foot as Chaz was pulling off combos effortlessly. The problem with Alexis' playstyle against Chaz was the fact that Chaz seemed to expect everything that Alexis was throwing at him, as he had been watching her duel from the very early days of Duel Academy. Chaz had also been informed about Alexis' new ice cards from Sartorius. It seemed like Chaz had done his homework and come at Alexis with a proper strategy to specifically take her down.
Is that so? I bet I know another one of your perks. A white room complete with padded walls. Did you happen to see that in your future, Chaz?
So Alexis decided to try a different technique and summoned, you guessed it, Ojama Yellow.
You're kidding.
Chaz was completely taken aback. With Alexis playing Ojama Yellow, Yellow asked Chaz if he missed having them in his deck.
Do you like what you see, Chaz? Bet you want a little of this in your deck.
Wrong, I think, but I'm just not sure anymore.
Cracks were starting to show in Chaz, and Alexis used this opportunity to summon the other two Ojamas, Ojama Green and Ojama Black. 3 of the 4 cards which she had asked Hasselberry to retrieve for her.
Dino DNA!
Immediately after playing the cards, Chaz couldn't take it anymore. Chaz threw away his white coat and put on his black coat, which seemed to materialize out of nowhere.
Like I always say, if it can't hide the dirt, then I don't want it over my shirt. Actually, I just made that up.
As Chaz came back to his senses, Alexis took this opportunity to use the last card she had asked Hasselberry to get for her, Ojama Delta Hurricane, which wiped out Chaz's board, leaving him wide open for Alexis to finish him off. Having Chaz back on her side was a huge relief, even though that was something she would never tell him. Alexis headed back to her dorm. She was exhausted from her duel with Chaz. However, there was a mysterious figure outside the dorm, clouded in shadow, waiting by her door. It was the one she was looking for, no other than Zane Truesdale. She approached him, her whole body feeling very fatigued. She attempted to speak to Zane, however, he only replied with,
Game on!
Even the way he spoke was nothing like his old self. His words cut deep with a stern ferociousness, like a wild animal. He carried a black suitcase in one arm, and a dark-bladed duel disc with his other arm. Alexis was determined to duel Zane, hoping if she won, Zane would snap out of whatever spell he was under. She cursed Chaz. If she hadn't duelled him previously, she would have been ready for Zane. But at that exact moment, a soothing voice spoke out to her. A voice she recognised very well. When she turned around to see the face of her brother, she only saw Nightshroud, the evil spirit that had possessed her brother so long ago. It was back. But Atticus assured her that it was under his control, and that it was actually his plan to call back Nightshroud.
Thanks for seeing me. Mr. Rhodes, I'm in a bit of a quandary, and you're the only one who can help me. But you mustn't tell a soul.
What's up?
It's your friend Zane. He's gotten himself into a heap of trouble. Recently, he got his hands on a forbidden deck known as the Underworld deck. I have reason to believe that Zane Truesdale is under the control of an evil force, and I can't help him. But you can. After all, you're no stranger to battling inner demons, are you, Rhodes?
Atticus stood in front of her as he prepared to duel Zane. However, before the duel started, Zane opened the suitcase, revealing 3 spiked collars. Atticus, surprisingly without a word, took the collars and placed it around his neck and arms, whilst Zane did the very same. The duel began with Atticus summoning Red Eyes Black Chick and tributing it to summon the Red Eyes Black Dragon, Nightshroud's signature card. When it came to Zane's turn, he used a card from his new deck, the Underworld deck, which contained the Cyber Dark monsters. As Zane took control of the duel with his new cards, Atticus screamed in pain as he lost some life points, activating the electric collar around his neck, sending a jolt of electricity down his body. This was a duel like no other. Alexis's brother using the power of Nightshroud versus her best friend who had lost his way, each taking severe amounts of electricity when losing life points, something Zane seemed completely unaffected by. Atticus combined with Nightshroud was still no match for Zane and his underworld deck. Zane showed no love towards his cards and tossed them away in order to boost his other monsters, showing no respect for his cards, something that old Zane would never have done. As Atticus was defeated, so was Nightshroud. See, Atticus thought that if Zane defeated Nightshroud, it would help him defeat the darkness inside himself. But he was dead wrong.
The Zane you knew is long gone, and he's never coming back.
Hold on. So your mind is still under the control of the shadows?
I'm not being brainwashed. I just figured out the truth, that's all.
Yeah, so what's the truth?
All that matters in life is victory.
Come on. You don't really believe that, Zane, do you?
I'm not playing games, Atticus!
As Zane walked away, his shadowy silhouette was the last thing Atticus saw before passing out. Alexis ran to her brother's side, yelling at Zane as he walked away. She took her brother to the hospital and sat with him during the night. Enough was enough. Alexis pulled out her deck to have a look at the cards, and a stray card fell from her pocket. She bent down to pick up the card. It was the White Veil spell card given to her by Sartorius, a card she hadn't used since she broke out of his spell. The card still frightened her. However, she knew this was the only way to turn the tides on Zane, using the Lie of Destruction to her advantage. But was she strong enough to control it? She inserted the card into her deck and rested the night, making sure Atticus was looked after. Alexis headed instinctively to the pier where she knew she would find him. And just as she predicted, Zane stood in the exact place they had hung out together, looking out onto the ocean. Alexis activated a dual disc. Zane smirked and said, "It's about time, Alexis," and opened the suitcase, revealing the same electric collar she had previously seen her brother wear.
But if you are serious about going through with this, then you'll have to enter my world.
Alexis was hesitant, but decided to take after her brother and was determined to beat Zane at his own game and put on the electric collar around her neck and arms. Alexis kept a calm exterior, knowing better to let her emotions cloud her judgment. However, it was difficult, as her brother was constantly on her mind in the hospital bed. Zane could tell what she was thinking and goaded her into using her anger and trying to convince her that all that matters is power.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.
Alexis ignored his taunts and started the duel. She summoned her Snow Fairy in attack mode, meaning all spell cards are frozen for one turn, stopping Zane using any of his fusion spell cards. You see, Zane was very famous for using his fusion monsters to destroy his opponents in one turn, especially with his new Underworld deck. Zane seemed unfazed by this play and summoned his Infernal Dragon in defense mode, which had a measly 0 defense. Alexis, thinking she had outsmarted him, attacks his monster in defense mode. However, Zane's Underworld deck relied on monsters in the graveyard, which Zane took full advantage of with his Cyber Dark Horn, which lets him summon back his Infernal Dragon and absorbing its attack points, destroying Alexis' monster.
And now, Dark Horn, attack that runt directly!
Causing her to lose 1,700 life points, which took a drastic toll on her as the neck and arm collars sent a bolt of electricity down into her body, sending her to her knees. She was breathing heavy and her vision became blurry for a second. The pain was intense. Alexis knew that if the duel continued like this, she would pass out before even losing the duel. She had no choice. She had to tap into the Lie of Destruction in order to combat whatever dark power was clouding Zane's mind. She searched her soul to find the piece of the light which was still inside her. She knew it never left her completely. Alexis's eyes changed colour. However, she was still in control over her senses, and most importantly, over her mind. She felt an incredible flow of energy through her body, as she felt more in control of the duel. Sartorius sensed this sudden change in Alexis as well, and grew worried, as her powers over the Light of Destruction was becoming dangerously strong, and it was something that could potentially undermine him, if he allows it to grow. Alexis, channeling the energy, drew the card White Veil, almost like destiny had placed it there for her. Alexis summoned the White Knight Dragon.
I sacrificed my queen and my cold sleeper to summon this! My White Knight Dragon!
One of the key monsters in her deck, and activated White Veil. Zane was taken aback momentarily. However, once playing the card, she could feel herself suddenly lose control of her powers, fighting for control over her own mind. The power was great. However, Alexis' mind focused on Atticus in the hospital room, waiting for her. She managed to pull through and declare an attack, destroying Zane's Cyber Dark monsters and eliminating any trace of spell and trap cards on his board. Zane smirked and glared at Alexis whilst taking the full brunt of the electricity from the shock collar. As the duel continued, Alexis realised that the fatigue from the electricity, as well as trying to keep the live destruction at bay, was taking a huge toll on her. She knew that she wouldn't last long in this duel. However, she did have the advantage in the duel. Alexis, mustering the last of her strength, used her White Knight Dragon to attack Zane and win the duel. In response, Zane effortlessly activated a trap card called Power Wall, sending a chunk of his deck to the graveyard, reducing the damage to 0. On his turn, Zane used Polymerization, fusing Cyberdark Keel, Cyberdark Edge, and Cyberdark Horn to create Cyberdark Dragon. This monster gained 100 attack for each monster he had sent to the graveyard, and Zane had just sent most of his deck. And he wasn't done. He activated his last face down trap card, which was called Last Turn. A very powerful trap card. This card meant that Zane could choose one monster on his field, which was the Cyber Dark Dragon, and send the rest of his cards on his hand and field to the graveyard. And in turn, Alexis would choose one monster from her deck to face it in combat. And the player whose monster remains alone on the field at the end phase of his turn wins the duel. It was over for Alexis, as she had no monsters in her deck powerful enough to compete with Zane's Cyber Dark Dragon. Zane had completely flipped the duel on its head. However, Alexis hadn't given up, and she looked through her deck with desperation. She eventually sunk her head to the ground and placed one monster on the field. It was called Shining Angel. Zane laughed and called her pathetic, and blasted the Shining Angel with his dragon, and claimed he had won the duel. But it wasn't over. When the smoke cleared, there was a monster on Alexis' board called Cyber Petite Angel. You see, when Shining Angel is destroyed, it allows you to summon a light monster with 1500 attack or less from the deck. Meaning, when Shining Angel was destroyed, Alexis could choose one more monster to take its place. And according to the effects of Last Turn, the trap Zane had activated, any other scenario, apart from one monster remaining on the board, would mean the duel ended in a draw. Alexis collapsed on the floor as soon as the duel ended. She hadn't beaten him, but she had shown him that it wasn't always about powerful cards, and that if you respect your deck, even the weakest monsters can help you out in a tough situation. Just before she was about to lose consciousness, she felt someone help her up to her feet. It was someone she didn't recognize, with brown messy hair and hazel eyes. It was a boy called Jaden Yuki.
You can count Jaden Yuki as present, thank you?
Alexis didn't recognize him. However, he smiled at her with a goofy confidence. He obviously recognized her. However, she had no idea who he was. He didn't appear to be a student at the academy, as he was wearing very casual clothes. Alexis thanked him for helping her, and slowly got to her feet. She had a lot of questions for the mystery boy. However, she was in no shape to make conversation. She made her way towards her dorm and to bed, but not before taking one look back at him and asking his name. He excitedly told her his name was Jaden Yuki, and that he would wait here until she was feeling better. Alexis was very confused by this. However, she didn't question it and turned away, collapsing onto her bed, still in her obelisk blue uniform. The next morning, Alexis woke feeling incredibly sore with intense pain around her neck and arms. exactly where the shock collars had previously been placed in her duel against Zane. She made a mental note to go get it checked at the hospital where her brother was currently staying due to his own injuries from his duel with Zane. It was at that very moment she remembered the mystery boy from the night before. She probably imagined it as she glanced out the window as if to see if Jaden would still be out there. But lo and behold, there he was in the same spot as yesterday, sleeping on the grass. Alexis was puzzled by the whole situation. However, he did pique her interest, so she went and got ready and met him downstairs. And a few kicks later, she finally managed to wake him up. She asked him why he was sleeping under her dorm window and that she could get him reported for being a stalker. However, Jaden only laughed and said he wasn't from this island and he had nowhere to stay. He pointed out onto the pier where a little wooden boat was stationed, big enough to fit only one person. He had really rowed all the way to Duelist Academy. She asked him why he would travel all that way, and without skipping a beat, Jaden replied, saying he travelled all that way for her. Alexis couldn't help but blush at how blunt and direct he was. He reached into his pocket and brought out a card. It was a fiend-type monster, a card called Yugioh. To be more specific, he said, this card has been searching for you, as he brought the Yugioh card closer to her face. So just to be clear, a random guy she had never met before just told her a card had been searching for her. The look of confusion on her face must have been quite apparent as Jaden apologised and told her that it would all become clear if she duelled him. Alexis reluctantly agreed but told him that she wouldn't go easy on him as she wanted to visit her brother Atticus. But she also secretly wanted to know what Jaden was talking about.
Ready?
Oh yeah! Duel! Get your game on, Alexis! Here we go!
Alexis and Jaden picked their dueling spot, which was closer to the sea, where the fresh sea breeze was abundant. Alexis took charge and made it clear that she was making the first move of the duel, which Jaden seemed more than happy with. He seemed really excited to even duel. Something about his carefree demeanour irritated her, but she wasn't sure why. Alexis realised that her past few duels had been super intense with a lot riding on the line, so she subconsciously had her guard up right from the very start. Whereas Jaden seemed to be having the time of his life with one hand on his deck ready to draw and start his turn. Alexis activated polymerization, fusing his Etoile Cyber and her Blade Skater from her hand to create Cyber Blader. She decided to start strong and teach this punk a lesson in dueling.
So you impressed?
Impressed? I think I'm in love.
You're sweet. Too bad I have to crush you.
He drew from his deck. Jaden summoned his elemental hero, Sparkman, a hero monster. She has seen hero monsters before against her duel with Asta, but these were different. They radiated a different kind of energy. She didn't feel as intimidated like she did when facing the Destiny hero monsters. Jaden then followed by activating E for emergency call, summoning elemental hero Clayman. Similar to Alexis's play, he also activated polymerization, fusing the two monsters together to summon elemental hero Thunder Giant. It destroyed her Cyber Blader with this ability and dealt her 2,400 points of damage by attacking her directly. Alexis's confidence took a massive hit as she realised that the guy she was dueling was no joke and he knew a thing or two about dueling. As the duel continued, Alexis came across many of Jaden's fusion monsters, each with a different unique special ability. In combination with his Skyscraper field spell, Alexis found herself on the back foot of the duel. When it was Alexis's turn, she was about to draw. However, Jaden interrupted, sending a shiver down her spine with what he said. He asked her why she wasn't tapping into the power of the Light of Destruction. How did he know about that, she thought to herself. Almost as if he could tell what she was thinking, he told Alexis that Yugioh could sense that power inside of her. It was actually that power that alerted Yugioh to her location in the first place. Alexis, still a little confused at what he meant by that, decided to ignore him. But he did have one good point. This duel would probably be going a different way completely if she tapped into the Light of Destruction, Before she made a conscious decision to use that power, it flooded into her veins. That weird energy. Alexis's eyes turned a different colour once more, and she drew a card from her deck. It was the White Veil spell card. She was taken aback by this draw. She was contemplating whether she should use the card or not. It was the same card that nearly made her lose control of herself against Zane in her duel. However, she was up against the wall. If she didn't use the card, she would pretty much lose the duel, and something inside her, a second voice in her mind, was urging her to play this card. Alexis succumbed to the pressure she felt in her own chest. She started by removing 4 ice counters from her Snowman Creator card and special summoned the Snow Dust Dragon from her hand, which she then sacrificed both monsters to summon her iconic Ice Queen monster, which had 2,900 attack. Jaden had Elemental Hero, Wild Edge, as well as 3 face-down spell trap cards. Alexis activated a White Veil spell card, and Jaden gritted his teeth like he was expecting it, and countered by activating Defusion, splitting his Wild Edge into Wild Heart and Blade Edge, to give him 2 monsters to protect his life points. And then Alexis ordered an attack using her Ice Queen, destroying the Blade Edge, as well as all of Jaden's spell and trap cards, leaving him with 1 monster on board. Alexis could feel the power of light growing increasingly stronger as the attack went through. She clutched her chest as she could feel the power swelling inside. Seeing Alexis' demeanour change as she played the White Veil, Jaden knew it was time and drew from his deck. He activated O for Oversoul, bringing back his elemental hero Sparkman. And similar to Alexis sacrificing his Wild Heart and Sparkman, he summoned the card Alexis had heard so much about, and it was Yugioh. As Alexis looked up at Yugioh, she noticed that she didn't look like other cards. She looked very real, as if it wasn't really a hologram from a duel disc. It had 0 attack points, but something about Yugioh seemed very familiar to Alexis. Alexis could feel her thoughts being infiltrated by the light once more, like it did when Sartorius had taken control of her completely. The light inside her seemed to have grown so much faster as Yugioh was summoned, and Alexis declared an attack on Yugioh with the Ice Queen. However, the attack seemed to dissipate as it made contact with her. Yugioh then countered with an attack which went directly through the Ice Queen, dealing the damage right back at Alexis' life points. She lost 2,900 life points, which meant Alexis had lost the duel. As soon as she did, she could feel the grip of the light leave her mind instantaneously. She looked up. All the monsters had disappeared from the field, apart from Yugioh, which remained even after the duel was over. Yugioh spoke to Alexis, saying her name. This caught her by surprise, as not only did a monster card speak to her, but he knew her name. She told Alexis not to be alarmed and that she would explain everything to her. Yugioh started to explain her story. She told Alexis about when she was human. The king had told her that one day the Light of Destruction would return, and when that day came, only the Supreme King had the power to defeat it and send it back to where it came from. However, the Supreme King would need a protector, someone to guide them and make sure they are safe and ready to face the new evil. Yugioh volunteered for that position, going through a sacred ritual and turning her into a monster spirit. Alexis listened intently, however wondered how this had anything to do with her. Yugioh continued to explain how she was locked in a card, and a special family was chosen to keep Yugioh safe until the Supreme King was reincarnated. Jaden was a member of that family, which had sworn to keep Yugioh safe and help her find the Supreme King. So Jaden's father passed the card down to him. Yugioh came closer to Alexis and bowed in front of her and said, "You, Alexis, are the Supreme King. I have been waiting for all these years." Alexis glanced at Jaden to see if this was some kind of sick prank. However, Jaden nodded in confirmation. Alexis took a minute to compose herself and finally said that this was impossible, and she didn't even know what the Supreme King was. Yugioh asked her if she ever wondered how she broke out of Sartorius' control in the first place, when everyone else needed to be defeated in a duel. Alexis thought back to a duel against Hasselberry where she managed to break out of the spell she was under. Yugioh's face changed to a look of concern. and told Alexis that there was still some evil inside of her, and that it was slowly sapping the power of the Supreme King inside of her. She went on to explain why it was becoming harder and harder to control the power of light. It's because the Supreme King was fighting the light of destruction inside of her the entire time, temporarily allowing her to keep control of her body. From the duel they just had, Yugioh knew that Alexis was starting to lose control, which Alexis never admitted but secretly agreed with her. Yugioh's last words before she materialized back into a card was, "You must awaken the Supreme King before it's too late." It was just her luck. She not only had an evil power inside of her that was trying to take over her body, but now she had another presence inside of her that she never even knew existed. Alexis looked at Jaden and asked him in a sarcastic voice how she was meant to unlock the Supreme King. Jaden had no idea, which didn't surprise her. However, he did look serious for a second and walked up to her, handing Alexis the Yugioh card. He told her how great an honor it was to meet her and that they should totally duel again sometime. Alexis looked at the Yugioh card and put it in her breast pocket away from her deck. From the sounds of what Yugioh said, it probably won't mix with the cards she was given by the Society of Light. Alexis headed to the hospital to find Atticus casually flirting with Miss Fontaine. Alexis was relieved to see Atticus feeling better and sat with him. She ended up telling him everything that had happened. Atticus was strangely quiet and listened to her entire story, and then said, "It's simple then, we just need to awaken the Supreme King." Alexis was shocked at how well he took the story, but then Atticus reached into his pocket and showed her the card which had Night Shroud locked away, and he told her a piece of advice that stuck with Alexis. He said, "Sometimes you have to accept the darkness inside." I guess it was a family thing, as both the siblings had their own burden inside of them. This hit Alexis hard, as for the first time in a while, she felt like she truly understood her brother. Atticus assured her that tomorrow morning he would help her unlock her powers. Alexis went home feeling much better, as she had her brother on her corner, and she didn't feel as alone, which she had done ever since she had received these strange abilities. She finally had someone that she could confide in and understood what she was going through. That night, Alexis twisted and turned in bed. She had nightmares about the Supreme King enveloping her. She saw a dark image of herself, a girl she didn't even recognize, looking back at her with angry, evil eyes. She woke up in the middle of the night to a cold breeze in her room. It was at that moment her door swung violently open and Sartorius walked in. He looked a little different, however there was no mistaking it, it was him. Alexis instinctively reached for her dual disc, however a calm voice, unlike Sartorius' normal voice, told her not to bother, as he was not here to duel. Alexis was taken aback. She couldn't hear any malice or evil intent coming from him. She couldn't even sense any of the light of destruction inside of him. Sartorius explained that he was the part of Sartorius which still remained good inside of him and hadn't been corrupted. He told her that he didn't have much time and that his evil side had gotten hold of a satellite which he could use to infect the entire world if his plans were allowed to go through. Sartorius then handed her a key and told her that he might take one of the 2 keys to power the satellite, as both are needed to activate it. He told Alexis to protect the key with her own life, as he truly believed that Alexis was the chosen duelist. Before Alexis could say anything, he disappeared into thin air. Alexis woke the next morning with barely any sleep as she clutched the key to the satellite close to her chest. She checked the key again in the morning to ensure that she hadn't dreamt the whole thing. It was very strange. The Sartorius she spoke to last night felt like an almost different person to who she spoke to in person. There was zero malice coming from his words, and she trusted him. At the very least, she knew she had to keep the key safe. And for her to do that, she knew she had to master the power of the Supreme King. It was at that point Alexis' door burst open, a second uninvited guest in the space of a few hours. It was her brother, Atticus.
You could have at least knocked before entering.
Of course he wouldn't knock. They had grown up together after all. He asked Alexis if she was ready for the training, and he seemed very serious. And she wasn't surprised after a conversation with Atticus last night. This was nothing to joke about. She decided not to tell him about the satellite key, as he seemed like he was already under a lot of stress. And as soon as she went outside, she understood why. Atticus had unlocked Nightshade by the time she had walked out the door, and once again, Atticus gave in to the darkness in order to help Alexis gain access to the Supreme King. Alexis took Yugioh from her breast pocket and shuffled the card into a deck. Something told her that Yugioh would be key in unlocking the Supreme King. The duel began, and it was nothing like her duels she had played with Atticus when they were kids. He was out for blood. Atticus started by summoning the Red Eyes Black Chick, which he immediately tributed to summon the Red Eyes Black Dragon, which then he also immediately tributed to summon the Red Eyes Darkness Dragon, all in one turn. Atticus taunted her, telling her to give in to the darkness inside of her, and then he set 2 cards and ended his turn. Alexis felt a little nervous. What if she couldn't unlock the Supreme King and she put Atticus through this for nothing? Alexis decided to have faith in her brother, and she used polymerization, fusing her Etoil Cyber and her Blade Skater to summon the iconic Cyber Blader. She was well aware it wasn't strong enough to destroy the Red Eyes Darkness Dragon. However, since Atticus only had 1 monster on the field, Cyber Blader was immune to battle destruction. She set 1 card face down and she ended her turn. Atticus smirked whilst drawing. He knew Alexis's plays all too well, and to unlock the Supreme King inside of her, he needed to push her past her limits. He activated Diffusion, splitting the Cyber Blader into the 2 original monsters. He then proceeded to activate Monster Reborn, bringing back his Red Eyes Black Dragon. He then attacked Alexis with the 2 ferocious dragons. Luckily, Alexis had Negate Attack face down in order to end the battle phase. However, it was clear from Atticus's expression that he wasn't going to allow her to escape that easily, so he activated Inferno Fire Blast, which did 2,400 points of damage directly to her life points. However, it wasn't normal damage. Embedded into the attack was the dark energy emitted from Nightshade. Alexis could feel something stir inside of her. However, each time she felt the dark power stirring, it disappeared as fast as it appeared. Alexis felt lost. Was anger and hatred the only way to unlock this power? She needed answers. Alexis drew from her deck and sacrificed her 2 remaining monsters to summon Yugioh. Alexis desperately asked Yugioh for some advice. However, Yugioh kept a still face and told Alexis that the Supreme King reacts to strong, negative emotions. And she proceeded to tell Alexis to focus on her brother, who is currently sinking further and further into the shadows, in order for her to break through as the Supreme King. Overwhelming guilt flowed through Alexis on hearing this, as she looked into her brother's eyes, which seemed less and less like a brother as he went deeper into the shadows. Alexis, overcome with guilt and sorrow, felt a stir inside of her. She felt a secondary presence, however at the same time it was still her. A power unlike anything she had ever felt before, a completely different feeling to when she was possessed by the light of destruction. However, the Supreme King energy that flowed through her veins was equally a cold feeling, full of negative emotions. Alexis's eyes changed to a bright golden orange. Yugioh told her that she did it, that she had finally become the Supreme King. However, Alexis stopped her and proclaimed,
"I am the Supreme Queen!"
Alexis had taken the power and the title of the Supreme Queen, finally fulfilling the prophecy. Hi guys, just a quick break to remind you guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Back to the video. Alexis turned her attention to her brother. She felt strange, like it was an out-of-body experience. It was like watching someone else duel, however at the same time, she was in control of this awesome power. It didn't take long for Alexis to defeat Atticus. The power of the Supreme Queen far outweighed the power of Nightshade, and Alexis sealed it once more. Alexis went over to her brother to check if he was okay. However, Atticus looked into Alexis' eyes and told her that she did it. Alexis had become the Supreme Queen, and it wasn't a negotiation within her body. Alexis and the Supreme Queen were one in the same. Yugioh appeared as a dual spirit in front of Alexis and bowed to her. Alexis was taken aback, but she didn't enjoy this kind of attention. Alexis told Yugioh that she had unlocked the Supreme Queen just like Yugioh had instructed her, and asked Yugioh what was next. Yugioh told her that she now had the power. She must complete her destiny and battle the light of destruction and save humanity. However, she told Alexis that in her state as she was incomplete. Alexis was confused. She had never felt so much power before, and somehow that wasn't enough. However, Yugioh began to explain. She told Alexis that for the Supreme Queen to be able to combat the light of destruction, she needs her ultimate weapon. A weapon which symbolized her power and dominance as the Supreme Queen. But Alexis wasn't interested in power. She wanted things to go back to normal. She wanted her friends to be free from the Society of Light, and most importantly, she wanted to stop Sartorius from infecting the entire world. However, Yugioh was insistent that in order to accomplish her goals, she needed something to fight the light of destruction. Yugioh informed her of a card called Super Polymerization, a card so powerful it was able to fuse dimensions itself. However, in order to create such a card, it must feed on the negative emotions of the people closest to her. You see, in the original timeline, the Super Polymerization card consisted of 5 emotions, which was the building blocks to create the card. 5 people were sacrificed. Chaz embodied anger, Tyrone Hasselberry embodied hatred, Atticus was anguish, Alexis herself was sadness, and Cyrus Truesdale was doubt. However, Alexis refused to create a card which in her eyes was evil, a card created with the deepest, darkest parts of human emotions. Alexis had a different idea. She didn't like that she had to rely on guilt and sadness to unlock this new power, and she wasn't going to go down this path. So Alexis suggested a different method to create this card. She relied on the positive emotions of her friends and family in order to gain enough power to build this card. Yugioh seemed doubtful, however she didn't defy Alexis as she had sworn to protect the Supreme Queen. So Alexis used 5 different emotions. Atticus represented hope in her eyes, Hasselberry represented loyalty, Chaz embodied unwavering persistence, Jaden embodied happiness, and Zane was strength. Even if some of her friends had chosen different paths, she chose to see the goodness in them. With all this power, she created a different card. This wasn't the Super Polymerization. The card which appeared in front of Alexis was called Supreme Polymerization. Yugioh was astonished. In her eyes, Alexis was truly incredible. She had only ever known one version of the prophecy. However, Alexis sought a new way, a path which strayed from the darkness. She was truly the one worthy of this power. Alexis picked up the card. She could already tell it held immense power. However, it resonated with the power already inside her. It was a perfect match. She realized at that moment that only she could wield this card, as anyone else would probably crumble under the pressure. However, Alexis was born for this moment. A sense of clarity washed over Alexis. Sartorius by this point had already realized that one of the keys to operating the satellite was missing. He confronted his good side regarding where it was, and it wasn't long before he realized that the key was with Alexis. The enraged Sartorius immediately dispatched members of the Society of Light to track Alexis down and retrieve the key, which coincidentally was around the same time that she had finished creating the Supreme Polymerization. Alexis was surrounded by 5 Society of Light duelists. However, the Supreme Queen inside of her saw this as a perfect opportunity to test her new power, and strangely, she was excited to duel. Alexis still had to keep the power of the Supreme Queen in check, but it was much easier to control compared to the light of destruction, which seemed like a foreign entity inside of her. Alexis shuffled her new fusion card into her deck and challenged the 5 duelists to duel her simultaneously, 1 versus 5. even allowing the 5 duelists to go first. The 5 Society of Light duelists smirked like they thought Alexis was crazy and immediately started their turn, each duelist summoning a monster. However, when it came to Alexis's turn, she drew the Supreme Polymerization. It was like no matter where the card was in her deck, it would always be there when the Supreme Queen called for it. This was one of the many powers she had attained. She activated the card, fusing all 5 monsters from her opponent's side to summon the Supreme Hydra of Darkness, allowing her the ability to attack depending on the amount of monsters used for the fusion, and gaining attack equal to every monster she had fused together, giving it a total of 6,400 attack. However, in order to activate such a powerful card, she had to pay half her life points, which was a small price to pay considering she had secured victory against 5 duelists in one turn with 1 card. After the duel was over, Alexis was amazed by the power of the Supreme Polymerization. It seemed way too powerful of a card. However, when she did use the card, she did notice that it came with a toll. It drained her energy considerably, leaving her feeling exhausted. She used this time to check on her brother, who was now resting in her apartment after the duel. Yugioh appeared next to her and reassured her that Atticus would be fine. Yugioh could sense that the darkness inside of him was once again defeated and locked away. However, she also stated that similar to Alexis, the power of Nightshade, similar to the powers of the Light of Destruction, would always be inside of them, waiting for its opportunity to take over. But now that Alexis had become the Supreme Queen, she stopped worrying about the Light of Destruction inside of her, but Yugioh still seemed concerned. Alexis, fresh of a win, made up her mind. She was going to confront Sartorius once and for all. Yugioh warned her to rest, as Yugioh had witnessed the duel from earlier, as it was worried that with Alexis feeling fatigued, she would give the Light of Destruction an opportunity to take over. However, Alexis's ego had greatly increased with her newfound power. This unfortunately was one of the negatives of the Supreme Queen. Her arrogance blinded her from her usual cautious self. Alexis headed towards the old obelisk Blue Dome, which was now where Sartorius was ruling from. She walked past many duelists which stared at her, but seemed to give her free passage into the dome, almost like they were instructed to allow her inside. As she got closer to Sartorius's boardroom, she saw an unconscious body outside, a familiar person. It was Aster Phoenix. It seemed he had also decided to confront Sartorius, but met with an unfortunate loss. Alexis propped his body up against the wall and proceeded to burst through the doors. There she found Sartorius, as he usually was, in the same chair, using his tarot cards to see into the future. When she entered the room, Sartorius didn't even glance up to look at her. Instead, he spoke to her whilst his eyes were still fixed on the cards below him. He said he had been expecting her, and that she had grown powerful since the last time he had seen her, and even used her title of Supreme Queen in a mocking tone. "It's over, Sartorius," Alexis said, brandishing her duel disc. However, Sartorius seemed far from concerned, and even offered Alexis a second chance to be at his side. He went on to explaining the misery and cruelty in the world, which was only growing day by day, and with his plan to turn everyone to the Society of Light, he could eliminate crime itself and create a peaceful kingdom where everyone would live in harmony. This may have sounded great at first impression. However, Alexis had been at the mercy of the Light of Destruction once before, and she was fully aware of its evil power. Sartorius, convinced that Alexis wouldn't be swayed so easily, accepted her duel, with the terms that if he won, she would have to give him the key to the satellite, and once again join the Society of Light. However, losing seemed like a foreign concept to Alexis and readily agreed. The two great powers colliding, the Light of Destruction versus the Supreme Queen. Yugioh appeared to Alexis and explained that Alexis must maintain the balance between light and dark, and the Light of Destruction proceeded to overthrow that balance, and the only way to fight against it was with the power of darkness. Sartorius started the duel by summoning Arcana Force 1, the Magician, in attack mode. These monsters were strange. They had weird abilities, which was determined by luck. However, Sartorius had the ability to change destiny itself, which meant Sartorius could alter the outcome of the ability in order to favour himself. Alexis on her turn activated Machine Angel Ritual, a ritual spell card. However, as soon as she activated a spell card, Arcana Force Magician's attack was doubled, bringing its attack to 2200. However, it wasn't enough. Alexis had summoned Cyber Angel Dakini, which when summoned is able to send one monster to the graveyard, leaving Sartorius wide open for an attack. Alexis attacked Sartorius with 2700 points of damage. However, Sartorius barely flinched, even taunting her.
Can't you feel it? The light of destruction now shines in you. Didn't it feel good to hurt me? To watch me writhing in pain?
Alexis knew he was right. She could feel the light of destruction inside of her growing stronger each time she attacked Sartorius. She was still a little tired from her last duel, and it became harder and harder to keep the light of destruction at bay. However, even though Alexis had a quick lead in the duel, overpowering Sartorius with the Supreme Queen, Sartorius soon realized the blatant weakness inside of Alexis and channeled the light of destruction in order to reach out to the part of Alexis which was still affected. The light of destruction was feeding on Alexis. Alexis felt overwhelmed as she fell to her knees. The light of destruction was sapping the strength of the Supreme Queen. She could feel it take over. She could hear Sartorius' voice in the background screaming for her to join him, as he knew he had won. Alexis could also hear Yubel's voice from her card, saying it could no longer hold back the light of destruction, and at any moment it would consume her. Alexis drew a card from her deck with the remainder of the Supreme Queen's power and activated Supreme Polymerization. However, instead of fusing the monsters on the field, Alexis fused her soul with Yubel's soul. Sartorius was shocked and had no idea what just had happened. Alexis took a big risk and added a third entity into her already chaotic soul. However, Alexis slowly got to her feet and faced Sartorius. Alexis's eyes was now a different color than before. One of them was blue and the other was orange, symbolizing a successful fusion. You see, with Yubel a part of Alexis's very soul, Yubel acted as a barrier, separating the two great powers inside of her, regulating it for Alexis. Alexis smirked. Not only did she have access to the Supreme Queen, she also had access to the light of destruction. She could channel both powers, increasing her powers immensely. Sartorius summons his greatest monster, Arcana Force Light Ruler, in a last effort to counter Alexis. However, nothing could stop her at this point. Channeling both powers, she could now rely on both the abilities of the light and the darkness, as they both worked for her. Alexis summoned the iconic Ice Queen, and then proceeded to use the magical stone of excavation, discarding 2 cards in order to add Supreme Polymerization back to her hand. She then used it to fuse her Ice Queen and Sartorius' Light Ruler in order to summon the Supreme Ice Ruler. Alexis attacked a defenseless Sartorius, winning her the duel. As the duel came to an end, the light of destruction left Sartorius' body, desperately looking for a new host or facing destruction. However, Alexis reached out her hand, absorbing the light of destruction into her own body, ensuring the light of destruction never possessed anyone ever again. It was her burden to bear. Alexis consuming all the energy was too much for her to bear as she collapsed on the floor. However, when she looked up, it was Yubel reaching her hand out in order to help her to her feet. But when she looked again, she saw many hands, the hands of her friends, all helping her when she needed it the most. And that, guys, is the end of that video. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please write your suggestions down in the comments below.